Hello, everyone. Welcome to uh, the session. So, good morning. I am Naomi, and I will be your facilitator. So, I'm pursuing my master's in data science and business analytics from the School of Data Science. I would like to welcome you all to the sixth annual Charlotte Women in Data Science Virtual Conference, hosted and sponsored by UNC Charlotte School of Data Science and Lowe's Inc. The With Charlotte Conference initiative aims to inspire and educate data scientists across the region, regardless of gender, and to support women in the field. With the current state of the world mainly interacting online, we are grateful for your decision to attend our two-day virtual event and show your support for our various speakers. I'd like to extend a special thanks to all our attendees for showing up and showing your support. I'm happy to introduce our speaker for the hour, Sabrina Riley, a data scientist at Atrium Health. Let's give a virtual round of applause and welcome Sabrina.
Good morning, everyone. I welcome you to my presentation. I want to ensure everyone can hear me. I think you can, so okay. Creating mobile apps have become very vital in healthcare. It's all about user experience. So I'm going to give you a little background. In 2018, the Department of Surgery identified a need to develop an app for surgical residents. One of the important things they wanted to do was to analyze their proficiency through their operative dexterity and also provide objective feedback. So our team never really developed an app before, and we wanted to develop an app that shows an objective way for performance feedback for the residents. So I did mention that mobile app development is all about the user experience. It's so popular now. Everybody loves mobile phones. So the aim of this presentation is to discuss the life cycle process and also the lessons learned from coding apps in multiple programming languages. And also too, in healthcare, you got to think about HIPAA and also privacy concerns. And most important, we work in a limited resource environment. So we're going to talk about those different phases as we move through the presentation this morning. What do we do first? The first thing we did was we bought a dry eraser board. And that was very important because we needed to mind map. So we had circles and lines all over the place. But it was important because we needed to interact with our stakeholders and also our end users. So with that, we started talking about requirements. What do you want to design? How do you want the screens to look? How do you want it to feel? So for an example, when a trainee performs surgery over time, the hope is that they get better performing surgeries. So that was the intent of this mobile design. And they had plenty of requirements that required us to calculate a Q-sum value. So over time, we can look at our limits for upper and lower and also see where the resident was doing with their success and failure rates. So we can offer interventions if necessary. So next, number 3, we went to development. Now we had to build a software-based application based on the team's preference. So we started off with object-oriented programming. The first thing I used was Flutter. Flutter is Dart-based. It has things called widgets, and also you can use it for iOS. You can use it for Google. You can also use it for desktop applications and Windows. And it was amazing. One thing I like about Flutter is it had a hot reload capability. Because we had resource limited, we had to look at open source. But through that process, we said, okay, what do we really want to do? What's great out there that's we may have to pay for? So we talked about that. So before we get into all the intricate details about the programming, I programmed the app in Flutter. I programmed it in Xamarin, which is C# and ASP.NET using XAML. And then we also use PowerApps. So we're going to talk about the testing too this morning. Now the testing involves finding and fixing errors. Through this process, I learned what the computer didn't like on iOS, what the computer didn't like on Windows. So I had to configure on all platforms in hope that we will get Azure. And I'm going to talk about Azure on our next slide. So basically, that's our wish list. These are the things, these are the tools we have within our toolbox. And what can we utilize that's, first of all, limited resource based? So we talked about the testing, making sure the app will work. And next, number 5, we talked about deployment. We have to prepare the software to run and operate in a specific environment. So through our process, we had to figure out, how do you deploy it on Flutter? How do you deploy it in Xamarin? And what is PowerApps all about? And number 6, we talked about maintenance. How do you handle updates and support? What happens if someone enters a duplicate? What happens if some widgets are updated? What if you like more functionalities with time? How do you handle that? So at the end of the day, it boiled down to the budget for data storage. So I'm going to show you the next slide. This is a process map in a perfect world. This is everything the team wanted. So talking to the front end, the end users, the stakeholders, we had to think about, if we had to pay for services for a cloud-based service using Azure, how would it work? So we came up from our mind mapping process to our process map to say, this is what we want. This is how it's going to work from beginning to end. We want it to go to Visual Studio, then go over to the GitHub repository, and then we wanted to do versioning control, and from there we wanted to do our questionnaire form and move that over to an Azure SQL database. We talked about how we wanted to calculate the QSUM values. It was going to be exciting. And then we talked about security and how we're going to get those APIs to move data back over to the app. So we were good to go, and then we sent this to Microsoft. So of course I was nervous because this is a process map, and coming from a project manager's background, people have to understand what you're trying to do relatively easy, and they should be able to take this map and run with it. So we got on the phone with Microsoft, and they said, we love it. Please send us this process map. So I felt relieved. They bought into the idea. They said that it can work, but we had to pay for some services, which was Azure. So at the time, we worked in a budget, resource intensive environment at times, and we might not have the money. So we said, okay, Sabrina, let's try to see if we can pull this off in an open source code base. Okay, so first thing we did was we said, okay, we're going to go to Flutter. Flutter is open source, and I'm going to tell you, I basically broke a computer. My laptop, I had to look at how much space that I needed to run the hot reload. And what that is the emulator. After you program your app and you tell the computer what you want to do, you have to run it. And depending on your computer, it could take a long time. So for this particular first slide that we see, this was a gallbladder application. It was basically a proof of concept to see if we can pull it off. So I had to do a lot of programming behind the scenes, and I set up bool values to say, if someone selects this button, give it a score. Now, keep in mind, this had no storage for any particular PHI. We wanted to make sure we stayed away from that while we was exploring the different platforms. So next we moved over to Xamarin. Now, Xamarin was offered, it offers C# and ASP.NET, which is Microsoft compliant, and they do have that FHIR and HIPAA compliance aspect to it. So I said, okay, we want to make sure that the organization buy-in. A lot of this mobile app development is somewhat new to our department, and also everyone likes the feel of a mobile app. They want to be able to go to the phone, pick an app, and just hit the buttons. And especially with surgeons, they're busy. And we have to look at what we can do to accommodate their needs. So with that being said, we went through Xamarin, and Xamarin deals with view models, XAML, all those language pieces stick together. And at the end, the hope was to get this to Azure. So in my Visual Studio, I waited. I said, okay, maybe we will get Azure, but at the meantime, I'm going to learn as much as I can and be ready when the organization is ready for us. So the next thing that was decided upon was, okay, what do we have right now that we could go ahead and test and send out to the residents for ease of use? So we decided to use PowerApps. Now, PowerApps was a little different because it's not as intensive with coding. But if you look back at the flow chart, it all basically is a car with a different engine. So we had to go in and use the same flow chart to get the same results. So with Power Apps, this is what we decided to do. Now, remember when I said we wanted Azure? Because Azure has DevOps, they have pipelines, they have data lakes. They also have a database that we can send information to. So I said, okay, let's look at Power Apps. So through that, I said, okay, let's try SharePoint lists. Using our mind mapping techniques and our flow chart, I said, let's go in to SharePoint and create a list of options that we can push back over to Power Apps. Now, at the time, I believed that I could do it, but I never really messed around with Power Apps so much. So I said, okay, logic's basically the same. Let's try it. So I set up some SharePoint lists that will read over into Power Apps. And from there, it goes to a SharePoint database list. So in essence, we were able to do the same thing we can do on any platform for mobile app development. And amazingly, in Power BI, we were able to transform the information from the database, so to speak, via a list and calculate the QSUM values. And we had about 2 weeks to turn that around. Now, mobile app development takes a little time depending on your resources, and you have a learning curve at times. So I bought a lot of books. I spent a lot of time reading, and I was not afraid to tear things up. And with that, when COVID-19 hit, the pandemic, it forced us all home. So I bought a gaming computer that would allow me an opportunity to get a quick reload. So when I ran things, I could see real time what was going on with my mobile app. So at the very bottom here, it shows you what we were trying to accomplish. Upper limits, lower limits. If you're in the middle, you're doing good. If you're above it, you exceeded the mark. And if you're below it, we have a lot of interventions to do. So this was my database. So when you get to Power Apps, you hit a button, it goes straight to my SharePoint list, and voila, real time in the Power BI. So it definitely works. I appreciate the fact that all those tools was under one umbrella and the organization had it at my disposal. And so all I had to do was take my flow chart, pull it out, and just replicate the steps. And this was the Power BI. I decided not to get too involved with showing you guys all the different formulas to pull all of this together, but it got so large for me because for every resident, we have like 100 or more. We had to create different tiles to send back over to the front end. And with that being said, we needed to get help. So after everything was built, we said, okay, we're going to have to solicit some people to help cut and paste information over to the Power App side, which is good because at the end of the day, it's a team approach. We're all in the same boat together. We succeed and we fail together. And I also want to say some of the formulas that I created, I don't think they've been textbook yet. So if anybody wants some of the formulas, feel free to reach out to our organization. When I learn, you learn, and when you learn, we all learn. So I'm very excited about that, especially being at this women's conference, to be able to share our experiences and to say, okay, I know this, can I help? Can you help me? At the end of the day, we're all in the same boat. So this is what we created, guys. It was just amazing. So right now you can go out to Power Apps for our organization and A surgeon can basically, a trainee can grade themselves, or a surgeon can grade a trainee. And it goes down step by step by step, whether an intervention was done, and then you submit, and then it goes over to SharePoint. It does a lot of transformations, a lot of calculations, and voila, you get results. So, mind mapping. This was one of the lessons learned. At the very beginning, we had to mind map. We had to draw it out. I have so many blackboards that I have, and each one serves a purpose. I have one for I have one for my example and Xamarin. I have one for Flutter, and I also have one for my PowerApps, and I also have 3 for my kids. Since we're home doing homeschool, being able to juggle working from home, a lot of times I think about something in the middle of the night. I get up and I said, okay, I'm going to try this. With programming, it never stops. You never stop thinking. But I visualize the process, and we literally use that process maps to represent our development. And all you have to do is follow your plan. You can't go wrong with that. It's been backed by governance. It's been backed by your stakeholders and your end users. Through meetings, you know that you're going to succeed at the end of the day. And one thing I want to mention to the group that was very important was to reach out to community resources. We never developed an app before. When my boss came to me and said, do you want to give it a try in addition to your other work? With being a data analyst, you have to do a lot of learning with Power Objects, business objects, and hopefully get into Netezza and learn all the different things that SQL can do. Let's try to look at clinical pathway apps first, and then let's dream big. Let's go ahead and design an app to one day be able to deploy this nationwide so residents could compare their progress across states, across hospitals to save lives. Imagine that. Imagine if you could pick up an app that can act as a hub for improvements. It's like education, like progress monitoring for tutoring students, which I do after hours sometimes. And you look at, is this baby reading to grade level? And what can I do to get them there to be productive citizens and to exceed? And the same thing in healthcare, believe it or not. So I was just very fortunate to be able to land here in Charlotte after doing many years in education, and to say, okay, can I use what I learned there? Could it fit? And a lot of these skills do fit in different aspects of your life, different aspects of your business, different aspects of your job. And what I have learned is ask for help. So I went to meetups. I went to a Flutter meetup. I was one of 2 women in the whole group, the only African American at the table. But I didn't see color. I didn't see gender. I saw this as an opportunity to help someone. And the meetups is a good place to do that. And then I took a data science course. I want to learn about Python. How can I learn more about machine learning? Even though I had books already waiting for the day that I will be asked to do those things, and hope that we can bring about more positive changes within Atrium. I just waited. And so taking that course allowed me an opportunity to learn about Julia, which is a new language, um, to learn about R and not be so afraid about Python. Because through that, we can also incorporate Python into our Power BI. And now we have data lakes. So now, remember when I talked about Visual Studio, seeing that you can take your Xamarin app over to Azure? Now we could take it over to data lakes, and we can do a whole lot of machine learning. So a lot of that is new to me, but I'm going to learn. I'm going to learn with our team, and we're going to take Atrium to new heights. And I'm so excited about that. So different programs, different methods. You have to figure out what fits your organization. Some people shy away from open source software. Some people want to take risk, but in healthcare, you can't take a whole lot of risk because you got to look at HIPAA. Is the software you're designing HIPAA compliant? So with Flutter, looking at clinical pathway apps was pretty safe because it didn't store any information. It just gave you a score. What are you comfortable with? Are you comfortable with learning new languages? Are you comfortable with, I can't say breaking things. Let's say, what's the right word with that? Let's say, are you comfortable with learning new things? What are your resources? What do you have in your toolkit? And lesson learned, let's be flexible. I learned that I have to consider the operating system. Am I going to deploy this on an Apple machine? Am I going to deploy this on a Windows? I'm going to use Linux. And now Flutter has a new avenue to do Linux. So now I can get on my Linux and look back at my virtual workstation I set up. Let's play around with that some. That would be awesome too. And then learn new things, learn about emulators, what they do, programming languages, configurations of hosts, and most importantly, have fun. I have had a fun time. I'm very fortunate again to be at Atrium. What a good organization to be a part of, to allow me the flexibilities to learn as much as I can, to do as much as I can, and I am very supported. And being a part of a great team, there's no way I could have done any of this without a great leader. I am so fortunate to have. Okay, so I'm going to share with you one of the things that came out of learning about mobile apps. I have a teenage daughter, and I went to her and I said, do something great for someone. And she loved anime. She loved the different things, the different books. And I said, why don't you and I get together and do a life-saving mobile app that can save lives? So she did all the digital designs and I did all the programming. And we together created a teen suicide prevention app that's at the Google store. And I said to her, I said, have you ever seen an app with a little black girl when you look at the app pin? Let's try that and see what happens. So first we started off with this little girl with the pom-poms, and then we made changes over time. And then we started looking at how many downloads do we get? And then the pandemic hit and everything changed. We began to get a lot of reviews. We began to look at see who's downloading it from China, how many from the United States of America. It's just been absolutely amazing. And then we got a little marketing. We got her T-shirts and we got her jewelry, so she can be proud of what she accomplished. And it's just all about at the end of the day looking out for patients. You got to look out for your students. You got to look out for your babies. And I am just so honored. So at this time, do anyone have any questions? Let's see.
We don't have anything in the chat window, Natasha. Sorry.
Do I have some more time to talk?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, well, let's see. Let's see what I can talk about. I can talk about Atrium all day long. We do have a group of about 5 of us, and we have 4 data operators. And at any given time, someone can ask us to do something. Going into business objects lately has been amazing to be able to say how many patients had an ileostomy repeat. So we can start looking at clinical pathways. So in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, mobile app. What if we can look at denials? What if we can ring a bell if you're billing something inappropriately? What if you're about to give somebody the wrong medication and you get a buzz on your cell phone? I'm dreaming about all the possibilities in the future that we could do with machine learning. So I'm thinking way down the road, all these little things that is asked of us to do. What if we take it a little step further? What if we do this? So through that, one of the initiatives we're going to do this summer with the help of my husband, he is a teacher, he teaches Python, is we're going to teach some kids in Zimbabwe through one of our professors when we took Python and Julian and R together. To be able to teach kids in Africa is just amazing. And also to be able to maybe do some opportunities for CMS students. And in addition to that, of course, we're looking out for our trainees at Atrium. Oh, guess what? I see a question. Does Atrium, an individual like yourself? Okay, I'm sorry, Naomi, did you see that? I didn't get a chance to see everything. Let's see.
Um, I I don't think I got that.
Let's see.
I
I
think
might,
send it directly to you.
Okay, does Atrium, like yourself, help team develop innovative related health apps? Well, the thing is, Atrium is so big, and there's a whole lot of things I don't know. But I do know this. Sometimes you're at the right place at the right time and you find out information. So I don't think there's a whole lot of power apps out there, but I think it's about to take off because of the pandemic. We're going to be doing so many things we never done before. Things has to change. We have to look at who knows what's coming next. People love mobile applications. What can we do to ensure the success of our trainees? What can we do to ensure the success of our organization? And what's popular right now? Today it's mobile apps. Tomorrow, guess what? Immersion's coming. Now, I had the honor of meeting with a CEO of Immersion, where you can actually feel the graphs. I'm working on that. I'm teaming up with the CEO of Immersion Flow, and that's new. So imagine being a part of that technology to be able to share that with the residents and who knows, patients to be able to say, okay, let's look at augmentation. Let's look at, excuse me, augmented reality. Let's look at VR. Now, we do have some initiatives with VR, and I'm running probably over a little bit, but VR is very important, especially in the OR. They're now doing VR with patients' pain levels. They're doing VR with surgeries. I can tell you this, when I worked at a school system, I used augmented reality and VR for students. Even though I was a data manager, I was housed at a school and I had an opportunity to talk to students to say, okay, why are you acting up? Are you bored? And of course they were. So I said, okay, I tell you what, I had to tell the teacher one day, I said, look, please, you got to clean up your face. These kids, teacher started crying. And I said, look, don't let them see you cry. But bring them back over to my office on Friday if they do well. So I had to buy stuff. I bought robots, I bought VR glasses, and they had an experience of their life when they're able to look at the beach. Some babies never went to a beach, but to able to pick up the sand and look down and swim with the waves. And then I went home and I swam with the waves too. It was so much fun. It was just amazing. And then too was conversation pieces like I knew someone that went to Prague and it was so beautiful, all the pictures that they shared. And I said, one day I'm going to go to Prague. But in the meantime, I'm going to visit Prague on my VR glasses. So I went home and my kids were all out in the yard. We're walking into stuff, looking at Prague. And what an experience. Technology is moving fast. And we have to keep up in technology, in healthcare, technology in education, because at the end of the day, what can we do to change a life? So that's it, and that's all I have to say about that. It's just amazing to be able to give back. We're only here for a little bit of time when you look at the big picture. Are you going to spend time complaining? You're going to spend time terrorizing someone? You know, sometimes you find leaders that really they lose touch. I can say that in education, some principals ran away from the schools. They didn't want to deal with it, so they wanted to go downtown and they wanted to forget some of the trauma that they faced dealing with staff or sometimes students. But at the end of the day, if you can reach back and Sankofa, you can catch it. You'll be surprised at what you come up with at the end of the day because we're all human. We all need each other. So, like I said, I'm just very fortunate to be a part of Atrium. I think we have one more question I can entertain. Wearables. Let's see. I think that means VR glasses. Now, they get really expensive, but I just went to Walmart, got a $2 pair of VR glasses, and they work just fine. You put your cell phone in them and you just take off. Now, I also bought a Merge Cube. They're like $14. And with that, you can put a cube in your hand and you can see everything you need to see, a heartbeat in your hand. That's been amazing too. Let's see. Someone sent something to me. Let's see. Okay, that's a good question. Someone asked, how did you know what the requirements were? Okay, what I did was I asked them, what is it that you're trying to do? What do you want to do? What is your current processes? So looking at the current processes, I was able to say, what are you doing? Okay, what we can do to improve it. So those project management skills kicked in. I used to be a project manager in IT. So I said, okay, a lot of times they don't know how to verbalize what they want. So I got to figure out, how do I get it out of them? How do I bring out the best in everybody to make sure all their ideas are to the table? So then I had to go home. I started reading books. Okay, what do I need to develop an app in this platform? Then what I need to think about security? Then what's up with the DevOps? You start looking at all these different avenues. So when you go back to the team, to mention those things. And then 9 times out of 10, you're going to forget something. And that's when you got to talk data governance and find out, is this going to be a fit for your organization? And it's very possible with mind mapping, getting everybody to the table that you can. Now, I'm not saying bring 100 people to the table, but bring your leaders, bring an end user. You got to bring these key stakeholders together. And bringing them together, you'll be amazed at what you come up with. You'll be able to find out what those requirements are through reading, sometimes videos, but you got to be careful with videos because everyone on Google is not a good teacher. And everything you find on Google, you got to be careful with code because it's copyrighted. You can't just copy people's code. So this has been a great honor.
Sabrina, we have a few more questions that came up.
Okay.
So everybody's, I think, amazed at your enthusiasm, and I have to say it's contagious in a good way. So can you talk about if your team has a data and emphasized role?
A data enterprise role?
It says ethicist. I'm not very sure what that.
Hold on, let me see.
Let me put that in. I'll just send that question to you.
Okay. Can you repeat it one more time?
Yep, it's a data ethicist.
Data analyst role? A data analyst role?
Ethicist. I don't know who asked this question. This was forwarded to me.
Okay. Huh. I have to do some research on that one. I can tell you this. In our group, we meet and we look at the data. We look at cleaning the data. Sometimes you realize, like with our mobile app, there was dupes. Do you need duplicates? And duplicates are important because sometimes you may have a repeat procedure. So then I had to go back and tweak my programming. Okay. Duplicate procedures are okay. But if you put in a duplicate procedure by mistake, that's not okay because that's going to skew the data. So at times you may get a call. I made a mistake. And you could go and look at the data. You could say, okay, they put this in at the same time. They can't do 2 procedures at the same exact time. So you got to be mindful of that on the maintenance end of that. So we do a lot with data. We do a lot, especially in data lakes. We're beginning to look at your data lakes and machine learning pieces of things. And that's very important because if you can identify, let's say, a tumor, looking at photographs relatively quickly, imagine how that can help someone on the front end be able to do a quicker diagnosis. So I'm just one of many in my department. We have a big group of superstars and we all work together for the common good of the organization. And I told my boss going into this, I said, I can come on here and talk all about me, but at the end of the day, it's because of leadership, because there is no way I could have done it without their support. And I am so lucky to have landed. I cannot emphasize that enough. At times when you're in organizations and you feel like, is there anything else out there I could do? What is my calling? I say, as long as you're with a good team, you'll figure it out. That's important because sometimes you realize I never took a psychology course, and I don't know if this is appropriate, but I've learned sometimes some leaders do very well if they're psychopaths. They thrive. They like to micromanage, and I am so sorry to say that, but I've noticed that. And I had to read a psychology book to understand that sometimes there's nothing you can do but to leave. And you may cry, you may feel like you're not going to see tomorrow because you're so stressed out. But you got to realize that's that trauma that you've been through because of that situation. It's kind of like post-traumatic stress disorder. I was in the military and never been diagnosed with it, but I've seen a lot of soldiers with that and never would have thought that I would feel that way in the real world. So with that, I have to be mindful of what I'm going into. So I use those project management skills. Is this person, what are their personality types? And what can I do to try to reach them? Sometimes you can't reach them. So then the best thing you could do is hope that leadership would intervene and try to make this employee the best that they could be. Sometimes being good on paper is not really best for your organization. Just because you can get in front of a million people and speak well and talk about the stock market and know what's coming down the pipe, sometimes you got to look at the people who they're hurting. And not saying that's happening at the atrium, because I love what I do. I have no problems. I have landed well, but I've learned how to identify very quickly what I'm getting into before I get there, so I won't go in blind. Ask all those right questions during the interview process to shield yourself, because right now we're all superstars. We hope everybody got something to bring to the table. So why should I work for you? I'm human. I have value and I matter. So we all matter. So with that, take care of yourself and try to avoid some of the things that I've been through in my lifetime with maneuvering through life. But at the end of the day, it all worked out like it was supposed to. So hope you guys enjoyed my presentation. I enjoy talking. I really have. And I feel honored to be a part of this day. And look out, because we got a lot of good things coming, because we all got a lot to do.
We actually still have 8 more minutes, Sabrina.
Oh, wow. 8 more minutes.
Yep.
This is amazing. Let's see. This is absolutely amazing. Okay,
And
so I do have something else.
we do have one more question, I guess.
Okay, great.
You can go ahead after that.
Oh,
So,
no. Yeah.
yep. So we have a question based on resource availability and timeline. How do you make sure that you are receiving timely updates along the way? Do you ever see a delay on projects? How do you manage these situations?
Okay. Well, typically, I try to get it right on the front end first with that process map. I try to account for everything, and I do not scope creep. So if somebody say, "Hey, I want to change this," I said, "I'll get back with you on that," because it's all about that timeline, making sure we meet the budget with the right people, and of course within the right timeline. So with that, sometimes you got to say, "Hey, this is not what we agreed upon," and then I do sign-offs. Sign-offs are good because that means we all agree on what's going to be deliverable, and that's important. So I have to. Sometimes when you're a project manager, it's just so much fun, and you got to hold on to those skills, because even now I use them to make sure we all stay on course. So even now with this mobile app, it's time consuming. All the different details. So I know that project manager and me, I got to be on time. So sometimes I'm coding, I'm waking up like, okay, let me see, let me try this out, because I said I could deliver. So I try to take myself out of it. And if it's me, I'm going to make sure I make it. But when it come down to the team, if there's some things that is limiting us, I try to let them know up front. And that is why I read. That's why I go to these meetups. I meet with companies all over the world. A couple of weeks ago, I met with a lady in Singapore, and she talked about how she started her own security company and how she learned how to code from scratch. So that gave me motivation that it's not unheard of, and that I too can do it as well. So that gives us drive, but it also lets us know, okay, what did she encounter? So maybe I can hold that to my in my head, so the next time we do a project, I might run into this again, so I can help the team to ensure that we're going to be successful. So keep in mind too, I want to add one more thing. I am just a analyst, so I have to make sure that I listen to leadership. So when they entertain these ideas, I tell them these are the pitfalls that we can run into up front, and they leverage that. And I do appreciate the fact that they leverage my opinions and say, okay, well, these are the things that she's having some time with. Can we solicit help? Maybe she need a new computer, but I really didn't need that. But yeah, maybe especially with data governance, see, they did everything they could to ensure that we can do it together as a team. And I hope I answered that question well.
Yep. There are no questions in the chat, but I do have one question from my side. So, considering that our phones are enabled with some kind of a speech recognition, we either have Google Assist or iPhone has Siri, which are collecting data on like a regular basis, and having a healthcare related, or life sciences related mobile application on the phone, uh, but when you have to build it, is there any additional step of security that you have to take so that these applications don't tap into any of the data, or try to mix any of our personal data with their advantage?
Okay, well, that's a good question. And I'm going to move away from healthcare a little bit, and I'm going to talk about security of your information. A lot of times people outsource that. They go to clouds and they try to give the responsibility to someone else. Now, with mobile app development, you could do development as back end. I think it's SSA. I gotta look at some books. I looked at that last night, but it's basically an app as a service. So it depends on your model. It depends on what you want to do. A lot of these companies offer protection for the risk because anybody can be hacked. It just takes a click of a button, and hopefully, especially in healthcare, we have a lot of safety measures with our firewalls. But a lot of times, especially for me being new to programming somewhat, I make sure that I'm very sensitive to what I code. Now, if someone hacks in, I don't see an instance where they could. I mean, for me, I can only speak for myself. But if it got down to it in the organization, we have an IT department. IS has been very supportive. We have firewalls. We have the SSL certificates. We have tokens to say, this is my piece of the puzzle, and this is this piece. Do they fit together? Can you come in? If you don't have those tokens, you can't make it in through the firewall. And that's something that a lot of people are looking at. I mean, people are hacking things. They have cybersecurity to try to mitigate the risk there, but it's real and it's ongoing. You know, it takes one person, and nowadays these high school kids, they're so smart. They're going in through Python. Like for an example, um, with machine learning, I have to go in and incorporate all these libraries in Python, and a lot of them are open source. So you have to look at, okay, a lot of these things have NuGet packages, you know, they're open source. You got to leverage what you're trying to do to what the organizational needs are too.
Thank you so much, Sabrina, for sharing your sharing about mobile application development with respect to data analytics. And I have to say, you've inspired a lot of us over here, and I hope we take some part of this enthusiasm over in our in our day.
Oh, definitely. If you ever need me, call me. I love to talk. Y'all take care. It's
Yes,
been fun. All
I
right,
will be
bye-bye.
pasting your LinkedIn link over here in the chat for anybody who would want to connect with you.
Okay, definitely. I would definitely start that. I just started one. I try not to be on LinkedIn because people try to steal you. I don't want to be stolen, but okay. All right, guys, y'all take care.